And we will bring you more on developments in Mpumalanga as a new provincial executive takes its seat. We'll be in conversation with Lindiwe Nshali, who is the newly elected Deputy Secretary. So more on that story coming up later on in the program. For right now, Northern Cape Police are investigating a case of assault and rape against a Kimberley-based traditional healer. It's alleged that the man assaulted and raped his initiates over a period of time. The family of one initiate who was allegedly assaulted by the healer wants the law to take its course. We'll bring you the details on that story a little bit later as well. And in this story, which has certainly captured national attention, the National Assembly wing, which was razed by a fire on the 2nd of January this year, has been severely damaged but is unlikely to collapse. This is according to a preliminary structural engineering assessment. The full extent of the damage will be determined in the second phase of the assessment, which should be completed in May. The Joint Standing Committee on the Financial Management of Parliament was briefed by the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, and the firm that was contracted to do the assessment, the Kucha Development Corporation, on the preliminary report is currently completing that report. And joining us is Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille. Minister, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. It's the famous gremlin, Minister. It's the unmute button. We can't hear you.
Talking to myself.
It's the best conversations I've had are those with myself. Well, let's talk about the National Assembly, though. It sustained extensive roof damage. We know that the structural integrity of the chamber is particularly noteworthy because there was severe heat there. It was estimated at around 900 degrees Celsius. It even damaged the concrete, the metal and the copper wiring. So there's virtually nothing left of it. But share with us some of the other findings in the preliminary report, which are also concerning.
Well, we had a first phase where we just did a visual inspection, and that could direct us as to the safety of the building. The second phase has started with an independent specialist team, and they have now been at it for about 2-3 weeks. As you know, Iman, it is still a crime scene. And we had to consult with the Hawks all the way. So where are we now? We are at a stage whereby the Hawks will now hand over the building officially to Public Works and Infrastructure. Then we will be able, with our specialist team, do the test of the structures, the test of the materials that melted. And then at the end of the second phase, which we are expecting a report the second week in May, they will give us the extent of the damage, the cost of the damage, and also the restoration time. So that is where we are right now. We felt it prudent to inform the members of Parliament, the Speaker, and also the presiding officers. So we are making progress very slowly.
Well, let's just take it back to the Hawks. They are conducting their report, as you say, or their investigations. When are they likely to hand the building back? Have they given you an indication?
On Friday, they gave us an indication to say that they will be handing the building back to us as early as Monday. We are just awaiting an official letter from the Hawks to say that they have now completed the investigation and we can now have full access to the building. So we suspect that to happen by Monday, Iman.
All right, so that's happening on Monday, and then, as you say, you'll move towards the completion of the second phase. Second week in May is when you'll likely have the final report. Now, I know that costs, of course, are dependent on the details of that report, but yes, have the contractors or the company that's been tasked with this job, do they have a ballpark figure?
No, Iman, the process is that once we have the estimated costs, the estimated damage, and also the estimated restoration time, we will then be presenting it to Parliament to say this is what the estimated cost will be. And it's up to Parliament. We need to seek Parliament's approval. And then, of course, we will then start putting out competitive bids and tenders for companies to compete to do the restoration work. It's too early to say even a ballpark figure because we don't know yet.
And perhaps what is also in doubt is whether or not this building is likely to be torn down, or whether a case can be made based on its structural integrity to actually, repair it or rebuild it.
Yes, that too, Iman. The specialists told us that they are now testing all the materials to see to what extent the heat damaged the materials. The outside facade of the building is still intact, and most of the damage is inside the National Assembly, and from the second up to the sixth floor, also a lot of damage. So in a few more weeks, also during April is a short month with all of the holidays coming, but first, second week in May, we will be ready to inform South Africans just where we are with the state of the building.
I was just looking at some of the details in that preliminary assessment. I mean, and it really looks like this building, took a hit. Both its heart and soul really took a hit. It reflects on, a fridge, for example, in the basement with rotting fish and meat. That poses a severe health risk. You've got mosquitoes that are breeding in the water in the basement. You've got this gas smell. I mean, just share with us a little bit more about what some of the other damage in this vein has been uncovered by the group that's looking at it.
One of the major concerns that we have, Iman, is that on top of the roof of the National Assembly, you find a lot of debris. And it's loose at the moment. And we know that Cape Town is very windy, and we also suspect, lots of rain to come. And at the back of the National Assembly building, you also have Government Avenue, but that has already been cordoned off by the hawks. So the very first thing that we have been asked to do is to make sure that we remove the debris and to put over a temporary structure so that we avoid more water getting in and we avoid injuries of people walking past the building. So now that the Hawks will be giving over the building officially, that will be the first priority. The second priority is that some of the building on the old assembly side, if the same thing there, if we can put a roof over some of the areas that were destroyed, we can then activate the water and electricity systems, and the NCOP could then be freed up to be used by the NCOP. So those are the two priorities that we are working flat out now to give more space back to Parliament.
Given that you don't have full access to all the sites that you need to look at in order to make credible assessments, we talked about this report, still some ways from being completed. Is there a fair, high level of certainty, that parts of it won't collapse? I know that has been the initial assessment, but perhaps once they have a more extensive, inspection, is that likely to change?
What the specialist team has done, Iman, was to demarcate the building into zones. So you've got the red zones that is completely no-go area. And then you've got the amber zones where you can only access it together with the specialist engineering team. And then you've got the green zone that is accessible. So the map that we have released on Friday showed exactly where those red areas are. And that, of course, is where the specialist team must test the materials of the structure to see how far it has been damaged. But at least now we know which part can be accessible to the teams and which part we cannot access.
All right, so imagining then that there are, sort of high levels of safety and mindfulness for the safety of the crews and the investigators working on that site and on that scene. I think, an important question that we have to loop back to, Minister, is the one about, who's responsible for suppressing information or keeping information from you about, information, for example, the BDO report warning of the potential risks with regard to fire and the electrical issues at the National Assembly. How much closer are you to finding out who's responsible and, steps being taken against those individuals or individual?
Well, for now, it is work in progress, and we have presented a report to Parliament about the action plan to deal with the BDO report. As I was saying, for us now is to secure the building. We were not able to put any temporary roofing structure on because the hawks were feared that we might, contaminate the investigative site. But it's all work in progress. It's all related. And we continue to give Parliament updating reports about how far we are. And obviously, what is better is that we need to put the proper systems in place that can prevent and detect these problems even before they occur. And so, as far as the administration is concerned, they have started the process and taking action against certain individuals in terms of the BDO report. And that, of course, we will be in the new quarter of Parliament. We will give the Portfolio Committee of Public Works and Infrastructure another update as to how far we are.
One would assume, though, you've made, some, significant progress in that regard. I mean, it led to something criminal being, happening and, happening under your watch, essentially. Would you say that you've made significant progress in identifying who might have been behind the suppression of the report?
You see, in terms of the Public Finance Management Act and officials within the administration, the accounting officer, which is our acting director general, he is responsible for leading that action. And of course, as you know, in terms of any action that you take, people are also entitled to have representation. And I know that that process is in place. I am not interfering with any remedial action, corrective action, or disciplinary action, especially disciplinary action, because at the end of the disciplinary process, the executive authority becomes the appeal authority. So, I will get the latest information from our acting director general, and certainly we will release some information to South Africans just to show that we are taking action, that there is consequence management. We have started managing the contracts better to make sure that we do proper contract management. Yes.
Minister, thanks for your time this evening. Patricia de Lille is the Public Works and Infrastructure